Ho, ho, ho. Are we on? We are on. Graves is here. Graves is now the first one. The first. Always. Oh, how the roles have reversed. So we're talking about prayer tonight, but while whoever is coming is on their way, I want to look at this. A large pile of burnt Bibles left outside church on Easter Sunday. Pastor Greg Locke of Global Vision Bible Church in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, told members of his flock that the setting on fire of around 200 Bibles in a church, I wanted to, they counted them? Like, whose job was it to count them? When the church saw this, with everybody there, did the pastor like pick somebody? Like, hey, somebody needs to count these. I want to know exactly how many Bibles were burned. I don't know if I would have done that. Maybe I would have, though, just to know. Just to know. Or maybe they eyeballed it, like the guess how many marbles is in the jar game. Maybe it was more like that. Either way, 200 Bibles in a trailer near his church by an unidentified suspect on Easter Sunday is proof that Christianity is, quote, under attack in the United States. If you think Christianity is not under attack, If you think Christianity is not under attack more than ever before in the United States of America, you've not been paying attention. You need to get your head out of the sand, quit being lukewarm. Totally improper use of the term lukewarm in a religious context and a Christian context. It's not what that means. It's very annoying, but I get what he's saying. But for a pastor to say that is very sad. It's very sad. And this is why everybody is lost. Why would they not be lost if the pastor doesn't even know what the word means? That's not lukewarm. That's evil. That's evil. I'm telling you, they are attacking churches in America. Can I remind you, for evangelical believers and for Catholics for that matter, this is the most important day historically and biblically that you can imagine. For every denomination, this is interdenominational. Ghost is half here. I'll take it. This is interdenominational. This is not for evangelical believers and for Catholics. Easter is important. For literally this is one of the things that actually bonds Christianity. One of the very few things that bonds Christianity is Easter. Why that distinction is there is not true. It's bad. Bad. Head pats for you. Bad pats. This is the most important day historically and biblically that you can imagine. And now Joe Biden makes it Trans Visibility Awareness Day. I mean, agreed. But what does that have to do with this? I doubt it was trans people that came and lit 200 Bibles on fire. Maybe it was. But I doubt it. Probably not. Biden drew criticism from conservative Christians for proclaiming blah, blah, blah. We already know it has nothing to do with this. But if you think for any second that Christianity is not under an assault and under, I get it. They're tying it together because it's under attack. Okay, fair enough. If you think for any second that Christianity is not under an assault and under an attack, I don't like the way this guy talks. Maybe I'm just in a mood. I had a day today. Maybe I'm just in a mood. So I apologize if I'm being nitpicky and rude. You're not paying attention, friends. Wake up to the reality. The beast system is here. They hate those that tell the truth, Locke asserted. Hours earlier, at around 8 a.m. on Sunday, Locke revealed in a statement on Facebook that a witness saw a man dropping off the trailer of Bibles near his church and setting it ablaze. It was all caught on security cameras. Happy Resurrection Sunday. This morning at 6 a.m., our security cameras caught a man dropping off a trailer in the middle of an intersection and blocking the road into our church. Oh, I mean, good strategy, I guess. He then got out and set fire to the entire trailer full of Bibles right in front of our church. That's quite the investment, if we're being honest. Can we talk about that for a minute? I mean, if you're a good shopper on Facebook Marketplace, you could probably pick up that trailer, maybe $2,000, $3,500 on the high end. It looks like a piece of crap. But like trailers, most of the time have identifying characteristics. I don't know too much, but I know a lot of types of trailers. They have their own identification number. So they would have had to obscure that. Like they would have had to file down the serial. It couldn't be registered. It couldn't show who it was registered to. So like this is an investment because 200 Bibles. And I guess if you're smart and you go for the charities, you could probably procure 200 Bibles for free. If you're smart and you have a bunch of people helping you, you could probably do that. But if not, cheapest Bibles on the market, maybe with inflation, like what, 15 bucks? 15 times 200. This was an investment. It's respectable in that manner. At least they really, really went into it. I give them that. I will give them that. Atrocious thing to do. But I mean, they went all out. There was a lady that had driven through the night to get to our church, and she was in the parking lot and was able to get the police officers here quickly. But it was quite the scene to wake up to on my first morning back from Israel. Had to block traffic in all directions, but they are almost finished clearing it up. It's going to be a great day in the Lord. Scott, good to see you, man. Good to see you. 200 Bibles were lit ablaze outside of a church on Easter morning, Scott. Just while we wait for, I think Rodriguez, Nat, and Ghost is half here. I have some stuff to fill the time. The Wilson County Sheriff's Office confirmed the incident in a statement, noting officials are withholding some details to, quote, uphold the integrity of the ongoing investigation. Around 6 a.m. this morning, the Mount Juliet Police Department and Fire Department swiftly responded to a trailer fire located at the intersection of Old blah, 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 blah. The fire was promptly extinguished by the diligent efforts of the Mount Juliet Fire Department. Following the containment of the fire, Wilson County Sheriff's Office deputies and detectives assumed control of the investigation. I don't feel like I'm going to learn anything else, so we're going to stop right there. Wild thing to happen, though. Or they raided a bunch of hotels to get the old Gideon Bible. I like that version better. That's a great version. I like that picture. But that's even more of an investment. Imagine that. Imagine they rent out cheap motel rooms, like the kind where you go in for a couple of hours because you're doing nothing godly in that room. You rent out 200 cheap hotel rooms just to steal the old Gideon Bible. Then you go on Facebook Marketplace. You buy a $1,200 to $3,500 trailer. You obscure the identifying numbers on the trailer. You then put together your plan to drive to the church. Trailer full. Who on the way saw this, though? That's what I wonder. There's somebody who saw this article the days after, right? And was like, holy shoot, I was behind that trailer. I saw that trailer. And they're like, I said, I'm taking this to the grave. I'm never going to say anything. Because they were driving behind a trailer full of Bibles. Like, who transports Bibles in an open trailer? Nobody. The answer is nobody does that. Nobody in the history of ever has ever done that, ever. But somebody saw that, and that's a great story. That would be the great story, to have somebody who is behind them in traffic come out and just be like, yeah, I saw. I was leaving McDonald's, and I pulled out behind them. And I thought it was really weird. They had hundreds of Bibles just in an open trailer with a couple cans of gasoline in the trailer as well. I thought it was an odd thing, but I mean, mind your own business, right? Well, see something, say something, friends. You know, see something, say something. Floof, it's good to see you. The Discord channel is open, just so you know. I have some stories that are just interesting that I'm going to read, unless or until you guys want to go into the prayer thing. Then we can go into that. Here's one. Speculation grows as search for pastor's wife Jillian Heath and Veronica Butler continues. I thought this was odd. I didn't know anything about this. So speculation about what happened to 39-year-old pastor's wife, Jillian Kelly, who disappeared in Oklahoma Saturday with 27-year-old Veronica Butler as they headed to pick up Butler's children, continued to grow Wednesday as the authorities still search for the missing woman. Kelly is the wife of Pastor Heath Kelly, who leads Hugoton First Christian Church, Hugoton, I don't know, in Kansas. Heath Kelly recently agreed to serve as the new pastor of Willow Christian Church in Nebraska starting in June. Both churches have been praying for the safe return of the pastor's wife. Where did she go? What happened here? Officials at the Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation told Cake News. What is happening right now? I feel like the CERN particle collider has already been turned on. That multiple law enforcement agencies are now trying to find the woman after classifying their case as a suspicious disappearance. Well, when two middle-aged women go to pick up their children and then are never seen again or are not seen again, yeah, that's suspicious. That's an odd thing to happen. The disappearance comes amid a custody battle between Butler and the family of her children's father, Wrangler Cole Rickman. What are these names? What is happening? Cake News and Wrangler Cole Rickman. What a savage name. That is a cowboy name if I've ever heard one. According to OSBI, the vehicle the women were traveling in was found abandoned near Highway 95 and Road L, south of Elkhart, Kansas, blah, blah, blah. We're calling this a suspicious disappearance as soon as you find the vehicle really in the middle of nowhere. As soon as you find a vehicle really in the middle of nowhere, you know was occupied by two women, and those two women have vanished. It's concerning for us as well. So we are really trying to figure out what may have happened and doing everything we can to find them. Great. That's great. The motion filed and blah, 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 blah. Tiffany Adams, the children's parental grandmother, opposed any adjustments in the supervised visitation agreement. Okay, so there was a custody battle with the kids, noting that the children had been exposed to sexual abuse while under her care. Interesting. The motion alleged the children's father was a drug addict who had no interest in caring for his children. It noted, however, that Wrangler Rickman, trusted his mother more than he trusted Butler. Wild. This is one you got to follow up on. Yeah, obviously suspicious. How would that not be suspicious? She had just accepted a job to be a pastor at a church. She was going to pick up her kids. There's a custody battle going on, and then she disappears. This one we talked about a couple weeks ago on a Thursday when we had just like the chill hangout. So here's follow-up. We had a pretty lengthy conversation, if I remember right, about this, because then we talked about how there's a lot of darkness in the church and a lot of darkness with pastors in churches a lot of the time, and how often it gets swept under the rug and not talked about, and convictions don't happen often. Instead, they get transferred or just it quietly goes away. Well, we talked about this guy that was not happening with. He was being held to the fire about the abuse that he had partaken in. So same guy, pastor accused of R word, impaired teen. I believe she had been drinking was the deal. Impaired teen, now on the run and is a former cop. Oh my God, talk about the wolf in sheep's clothing. 100%. Absolutely. So 62-year-old Florida pastor and former police officer accused of getting a 15-year-old member of his church drunk and SA her is now on the run weeks after he was released on a $75,000 bond. That's right, because we were talking about how I believe this is where I kind of lost my cool a little bit. And I ranted about how I was very happy that somebody was being held accountable and talked a little bit about how I feel like I'm seeing this a lot more. I'm seeing pastors, men specifically, because that's how there's more men pastors than women, and there's more men who commit things like this than women, obviously. So it's good to see that male pastors in leadership are finally, they seem to be being held accountable more often with sexual debauchery. It makes me very happy. This was the one that I was talking about, that I was very happy about, that he was being held to the fire. But it looks like he got out on bond and he's like, yo, I'm out, because he's guilty. He's 100% guilty. Our understanding is that he's already on the road and he's left the state of Florida. Chitty, who served as leader of the First Baptist of Marathon, recently started a dockside ministry for a boating community in Boot Key Harbor. Failed to attend a scheduled court hearing on Monday. Prosecutors say he fled the state in a white van with out-of-state plates. So somebody is helping him. A judge increased the bond to $1.3 million and issued a warrant for his arrest. Local 10 reported the pastor was previously charged with sexual battery of a minor, lewd and lascivious conduct, and contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So he's just all around a terrible, terrible man. He has priors. And so perhaps, one, if you're actually a part of the Baptist denomination, there is leadership above you that is allowing you to operate as a pastor in a church. That's how that works. However, it seems that maybe when he started this dockside ministry, he went out on his own because perhaps, I don't know this for sure, but perhaps due to his priors with lewd and lascivious behavior, perhaps the Baptists booted him. And so he started an independent ministry, literally down by the boats, which is about as hick ghetto as it gets, which is kind of amusing. Him, not the scenario, obviously. Who the heck bonded him? Well, that's the thing. Sexual crime, you are bonded for cheaper. You are pled down more often and to a lesser degree. You do time less, and you get probation or parole less. That's just how it works. Then it seems as though if you have SA behavior and you end up getting caught with it, and it has to do with kids, it seems as though you get even less. It's like the younger the victim, the less punishment the person gets, which is about as backwards as it could possibly get. We have talked about it often that I believe if you do anything to children, you should be the fertilizer that grows the flowers at the prison. They should have beautiful gardens that you, because you cannot function in society and you should never be given another chance in society. You should be aiding in the floral beauty outside the prisons. People need to stop bailing people out for the love of God. Well, judges need to stop offering bail is really what the problem is. I mean, if you offer people to get out of jail, they're going to get out of jail. You can't really like blame them for that. I get what you're saying, but I don't know if they're to blame. I think the judicial system needs to stop offering it. If you have a direct victim, you shouldn't be offered bail. If there's a victim, you should not be allowed the opportunity to get out. Period. If there's enough evidence, if there's any evidence, maybe. I don't know. It's somewhat complicated because you don't want to lock people up who are innocent and just accused of doing something when there's no evidence whatsoever. But it seemed like the dude has priors. It seemed like, if I remember right, when we were reading the article last time, there seemed to be some decent evidence. You don't give that guy bail. He gets to sit in jail until his trial date because stuff like this happens. Somebody who you know is guilty, no crap. He's going to run. He knows he's guilty. The dude is going to prison. And believe me, their life in prison is not good. It is not good. Judges have the authority to hold them without bail, though. In certain scenarios, depending on the state, they do. Amen to the fertilizer. But yeah, that's sick. That's sick. I thought when we'd eventually follow up on this one, it'd be like, dude sentenced to 15 years in prison or something. This was not the outcome that I was hoping for. Medics performed abortion. If you guys want to talk about prayer, just let me know. Otherwise, Thursdays are just going to be chill hangout time, Christian focused. But anybody wants to come on and talk, come on and talk. Anybody has a topic you want to talk about, throw it out. If there's a verse in the Bible you want to talk about, I just want to make sure we keep Thursdays like spiritually focused. So even if we're going through new stuff, I want it to be within that realm and hopefully bring it to a spiritual place. But we are good for the prayer discussion if you guys want to have it. I'm just not going to have it with myself. We've already done it a couple times, so you guys can go back and watch the recordings when we talked about prayer. I have other videos on it and stuff. So if it's not going to be like a conversation between people, I'm not really interested in just talking about it by myself for an hour. This was wild, though. This was wild. Medics perform abortion on the wrong woman after hospital mix-up. They're facing criminal investigation. A fatal mix-up at a hospital resulted in doctors performing an abortion on a woman who was 4 months pregnant and there for a checkup after medical professionals confused her with another woman. Can you even fathom that? Going in as a 4-month pregnant woman, presumably excited that you are pregnant and having a child, going in for a checkup, and instead having your child, for YouTube's sake, destroyed. Rodriguez, you're good.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. No, I mean, I do want to talk about the prayer thing, but I just got really pissed off about this other one because as someone who has surgeries all the time, I mean, you have pre-op tests that have a pregnancy test, and
Yeah.
before, like, I'm just not understanding how.
How does that happen? How does that even happen?
Uh,
The level of negligence. Otherwise, it's malicious, right?
Put the article back up because I can't see it on the screen. I want to see.
You want me to
Yeah,
read
no.
more of it?
No, I just kind of had wanted to see it, but oh, this was in Russia?
Was it? I didn't read it all the way.
The Czech news.
Yeah, it looks like. Yep.
Oh my god. I hope she sues the hell out of him.
Yeah, Beluvka University Hospital.
Yeah, that's so heartbreaking. Oh my god, as a mom.
I couldn't even imagine. I couldn't even imagine. Like going home and like telling your husband after you have like not even processed at all what has happened.
Her husband probably knew first though, because she wasn't awake.
Do they put you out for it? I don't think they do anymore. Do they?
Oh yeah. You're out. You're out and you're having interesting conversations for sure.
Really? Still. I honestly don't know. I
I
thought
had
Go
like
ahead.
I had surgery. My Dia came in from out of state to help me. And then I remember when I had come home, like, and I was like out of it and sleeping. And then like at nighttime, I woke up and I saw her there and I was like, oh my gosh, what are you doing here? How'd you get here? Like I was, yeah, oh no, you say some pretty, yeah.
But for and I mean obviously for like a lot of procedures they put you under, but I thought with abortions now they didn't have to. I could totally be wrong
But
though.
she didn't go in for an abortion.
No, she went in for a checkup. She went in for a checkup.
Oh crap, maybe I missed that
That's
part.
what, yeah. So, a fatal mix-up performing an abortion on a woman who was found 4 months pregnant. Blah blah. Just Jack News reported March 25th, where the doctors carried out a procedure on her that resulted in a miscarriage. Okay, so maybe there is more to
Okay.
this. The mix-up reportedly occurred in the waiting room when the woman responded by mistake. Oh, so she has some. I mean, I guess
Okay.
you
So
still
wait a
can't say
second.
that though.
Wait. I did work in a OBGYN's office before, and we would make jokes all the time because we would call a patient's name, and the person would literally come up, go to the back, and then we would confirm the name and date of birth, and it would be something totally different. And it's like, how the hell are you in this chair? And you didn't even get the name. I don't know. So people are kind of.
So maybe there's a bit of culpability on her, I guess, mistaken when the staff called her name of another patient. It is speculated that perhaps the woman did not understand the situation due to a language barrier. Okay, the Czech police announced that
Yeah.
the investigators have initiated criminal proceedings on suspicion of the criminal offense of bodily harm due to negligence.
Yeah.
She also willingly let herself be prepared for the operation and taken to the theater. I guess that's what they call that. When the anesthesiologist addressed her by name in the theater before the operation, she nodded again. She doesn't understand what they're saying, it sounds like, though. So maybe don't.
That's not something you nod to, though.
But if
Isn't
I,
that a universal?
yeah, but if she doesn't understand, like, I don't know. I had before I moved to jobs recently, I had a guy that was working for me that was Polish. I understood a bit of what he was saying, like usually enough, but I definitely nodded to things that like I had no idea what he was saying. I went, I just kind of like understood his inflection and hand motion, like So sometimes, like I don't know, I
But
get that.
that's work. That's not your innards boy parts.
No, but I also would like
Maybe more
trust
hesitant.
doctors. I don't like she's definitely to blame. I'm not taking away her blame, but like I guess I could see this kind of playing out depending on how bad the language barrier is. Like, does she understand nothing that they're saying? Maybe don't go to the doctor then,
I
like without a
know.
translator or
Yeah.
something. Use
It's
your
an
phone.
emergency.
I hate to
Uh,
blame this lady because that's like atrocious. No matter what,
Hi,
it's terrible.
friends.
hey.
Hello.
Yeah, I've been wanting to join in the podcast for a couple weeks now, so here I am. Are we talking about abortion or are we talking about prayer? I'm sorry.
Nat was
Mm.
supposed to come for prayer. Ghost, if he wants to come in too, as long as we have enough for it, then yeah. Otherwise, we'll probably push it to next week. It was it was like 3 or 4 of us last week that kind of went off on it a little bit.
Yeah, have we talked about it at all yet? I kind of have some thoughts about prayer.
Not
Yeah, I know
yet.
you and I
Yeah,
talked about it privately, right? Should we pray and does it even work?
Yeah,
go ahead.
like How do you mean, like, for example, why do some people get like miraculous healings from prayer and other people don't?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'll pull
Or
up
is God playing favorites? Like what,
yeah, exactly. So Rodriguez put some stuff in the forum for you.
Oh my God, I didn't think you were gonna actually post that.
I'm gonna put it up. So it says it's a meme that says thank you for your prayers. It's a bunch of inebriated. Is that the right word? Inebriated?
Emaciated.
Emaciate. They were very tasty and filling, good God. Oh, are you hungry? Allow me to pray for you. Obviously, sarcasm, mocking. And then James 2:15. Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say, goodbye and have a good day. Stay warm and eat well. What translation is that? But then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you
I
see,
feel like
faith.
it was applicable to that post.
Yeah, for sure. So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless you produce good deeds. It is dead and useless. Which is, yeah. I mean, that's enough. The other one says, "I'll pray for you." The person hanging off the cliff says, "F you."
I felt that way before.
Yeah,
I didn't make it.
of
Make it.
course. She said, "Hear me out on this. I've honestly felt this
Hmm.
often. Sometimes I think we are the answer to prayer, but sometimes I think we are the answer to prayer, but are just stupid or unwilling." So I guess like the basis of it, start with like the basis of it, and what is prayer for? Because even that alone, you get different answers, and then I feel like from there, it kind of cascades. What is it for? What is its
Yeah,
purpose?
I can share some light on this. I was raised Catholic, so I can tell you what I vaguely remember the answer to that question being, as it pertained to class. It's basically talking to God is what they taught us, and there's different kinds of prayer. There is well, the one that's most well known is like petition, which is please heal my mother, or please, you know, healing, or good intentions. There's gratitude, there's the asking for things, and then I think there's the third kind of prayer was glorification, like the glory be to the Father. That prayer.
Like pray.
That's
Petition,
yeah.
confession, intercession, praise and thanksgiving, adoration, and mystical union or ecstasy. But there's different terms. Like the Catholics do, like you said, they call them different things, but it's all basically the same stuff.
Yeah, just talking to God. Although I do wish we could also hear from God back. It doesn't really seem like very good communication.
Why do you think that is? Do you think it should be verbal? I guess like what
I
are you
wish all I'm
picturing?
saying is it would be very nice and very good for everybody's faith if God was in regular conversation with us the way that he used to be more involved, like you said before, like when he spoke to the prophets and the prophets heard his voice. Like all I'm saying is it would be nice if God would respond directly, with our prayers.
Yeah, agreed. So I'll be the
I want to
annoying.
know.
Hold on, let me be
Yeah.
the annoying pastor real quick. So what I would say to you if I was the annoying pastor would be, well, that doesn't take very much faith, Katie. If God spoke to you, that doesn't take very much faith, would it? It wouldn't be
Hmm.
faith anymore. I don't believe that, just to be clear. I would never say that to somebody. But that's the cookie cutter obnoxious pastor
Sounds
answer.
familiar.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Faith is good.
But no, I mean I agree with you, obviously. I think everybody
What's a
should.
challenge?
Rodriguez,
Like, we can't have anything easy. What were you going to say, Vanessa?
Oh, I don't completely remember. Oh, like I think for me is I just wish that there was like how did he talk to them? We know the whole theophany stuff. We know about the burning bush, blah blah blah.
Mhm.
But how do they know for sure it was him?
as opposed
Like,
to what? Like as opposed to
oh no,
who?
being schizophrenic, being
Exactly. I'm like, you could be hearing voices, or maybe a demon is talking to you or something. I don't
yeah.
know.
What about confirmation?
I don't know, man. If you read Hosea, for example, Hosea, that's the one, right, where he was told to marry the prostitute and all of that. Like, I like 1000% would say if someone told me, God told me to, I'd be like, No.
Yeah.
But Abraham killing his kid is like cool.
That's another one. But I mean, at the same time, child sacrifice was pretty common back then.
Yeah, these are
I'm
questions
not
that I
trying to.
still have. These are
Yeah,
questions that like
exactly.
hurt my faith. Like they're obstacles to my faith.
It
Those
it
questions
wasn't
right there.
common for Israelites. It wasn't a normal thing for them. For like in Moses's context of him as an individual, it was very abnormal. So I get what you're saying because like pagans and stuff would do it, but in like old Mesopotamian weird cultist things, but like for the biblical individual context, I don't think it would be a normal thing at all. So I think it's a pretty wild thing to ask him to do. I think it, like Katie said, I think that's one thing that like that rocks people's faith a lot. That's something that gets brought up to me all the time. Like when I first started doing this, and it was mostly just atheists that followed me, and it was like just debating people all the time. That was a super
Wow.
common one. Of like, I was Christian for a long time, but here's a list of 3 things that I just can't get over. Abraham is one of them a lot of the time because it's a wild thing to ask him to do.
Yeah, like why would he say like Deuteronomy 13, let your hand be the first to rise against them, and then like way over in the Jesus part of the Bible it says turn the other cheek. Like that's it's kind of messed up that he would ask us to tell someone if they encourage us to. Do you know Deuteronomy 13?
Yeah, yeah, but this is like that's I'm the wrong person to ask because my perception and perspective of the Old Testament is wildly different than the New Testament, and it's one of the things that has really pushed me out of Christianity. I don't see them as the same. I see them as one, but Jesus and God are not the same in my perspective alone. Nobody else's.
Yeah, I mean,
They're
and is that an acceptable, I wonder, what would people say? Is that an acceptable thing to say? Or is that
no, no.
blasphemy? Is that like, oh my gosh, this guy is a false teacher, blah, blah,
Oh, it's
blah.
false teacher all the way. As far as like a normal church goes, yeah, it's false teacher all the way.
But then you bring it into theocracy, right? And like Levitical laws versus, I don't know. I guess it's different
what does theocracy have to do with that?
because some of their laws were set up because that was just their government.
I mean, Levitical law, kind of.
Yeah, like you can't eat these certain animals, and if you do this, then you have to kill a pigeon versus a sheep versus a goat, and you have to.
Yeah, that wasn't
You,
governmental though. That wasn't governmental.
some
Oh,
people
Oh,
think. Some
ceremonial
people
law.
think. Some people think that I had a conversation with someone lately who said that all of the old Leviticus laws were just basically written by humans who were faking it. Like, oh, I heard God say this, but in reality, it came from their own mind, their own brain, just because they wanted to control people. What do you guys think of that hot take?
about Levitical law,
Yeah.
as much as any of the rest of the Bible. This is my honest answer. I mean, if you can say that about one thing, you can say it about all of it.
Right.
Is
Do you think so?
No, I don't. Again,
Right.
this is the part that this is why I can't work in churches anymore. But I don't think the Bible's. I've been very clear on that forever. The Bible is full of flaws. The Bible has massive issues. The Bible is not what it
Mhm.
was in when it was first put together. It's been destroyed by politics and by governments and by men with the bone to pick and men who wanted their personal bias or governmental bias or denominational bias wanted it fed into it. There's no way to disprove that unless you're delusional or you're unwilling to do the research. If you actually get into it, it's clear as freaking day. You just need to put these things next to each other and read through them. There's so many sections where translation to translation, utterance to utterance, the entire context or message of a verse will be shifted. And then if you trace the shift to the individuals or the group that put them together, and you go, what do they believe? What are they trying to push? What is their bias? It perfectly
Yeah.
aligns. And if you do the same thing with another, it perfectly aligns. Humanity has completely obliterated the Bible. But I don't believe like Levitical law didn't exist or that it wasn't real. I just think that it's probably not exactly what it said in the beginning. Same thing with things about Jesus. Probably not exactly what it said in the beginning.
But there just seems to be a collective understanding that when the prophet says or does something and claims it's of God, like everybody knows this, right? Like there
Yeah.
is no questioning of sanity. There is no, like that's the part I'm not really understanding. Like I know we've talked recently about like wives being submissive. Like if you took my kid and I'm married to you up to sacrifice them, like it will not end well on my end. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but there's no objection there. There's no like I'm not understanding. Well, I shouldn't say that. We don't know, right? I guess women didn't have a voice back then, but yeah, there's a lot of weird stuff and it I don't know.
I think people did think they were crazy though. I wouldn't
Y-
fully
I
agree
mean,
with
but
that.
we see that like with Noah,
We see
but
that
why
with
would they mention it with Noah and not, you
Jesus
know?
too. That the part of the problem
Yeah.
I think is that most Christians probably don't read like other texts of the time, and they don't
Mhm.
like Jews thought Jesus was insane. Jews today think Jesus was insane.
Or possessed. Yeah.
So I mean
Yeah.
that's so it did exist. Like I think that did happen. It probably happened a lot. If you look at like and we do it to them. It's if you go back to Corinth, if you pretend you're at Corinth, you are one of the totally twisted individuals that was at the Church of Corinth. You're surrounded by a port. It's a massive trade area. There's paganism everywhere. There's all kinds of
Right.
weird sexual worship.
Yeah.
Prostitution is about as it's ever been. Like that's your culture. And then you as a Christian who's doing that stuff too, you're pulling all the pagan stuff into Christianity, but at the same time you're calling the pagans delusional, or you believe them and you just think it's all demonic, and they do the same to us. The part about religious people I've never understood, and that's always aggravated me, is that most of them seem to
I gotta
be
go. I gotta go.
all
Sorry,
right.
I only had a little bit of time. Bye.
You're good. Have a good night.
Okay, bye, honey.
It seems like religious people there's like an inability to step outside of yourself and say, okay, I may believe this, but what do other people think about what I believe? Well, they think you're crazy, is what they think. Just like you think Muslims are crazy and you think Hindu people are crazy.
I mean, I don't, but yeah, I hear what you're
Yeah, I
saying.
know you do. I think I would guess most of the people in our little group here probably don't, because it's a different kind of like it's a different breed. But I think that's kind of the majority. And so I think back then they probably did the same thing. They probably thought Jesus, well, we know for a fact they thought Jesus was crazy or a false prophet or a liar, but it's like it's one of those. I would imagine that even in the Old Testament it was probably the same thing. I'm sure a lot of people did think they were crazy. The thing that would make it different is like in the Old Testament, part of my whole argument is like there's all of this stuff that's happening that's very easy to see. You don't need like this totally whimsical faith that I feel like most people need today. You're seeing it. Like stuff is
You don't think it's
happening.
you don't think it's circumstantial,
What do you mean circumstantial?
like the amount of faith that's needed?
Why would it be? I guess like explain more. I don't fully understand.
Okay, then you explain more what you're saying that you don't need like this whole other level of faith. If you elaborate on that, then maybe
So
I can.
so I mean like for example, the flood. Noah told people about the flood. Everybody thought he was crazy. Well, then what happened? There was a flood. So people got to see like, oh, dude wasn't crazy. He actually like talked to God. And there's dozens of scenarios of that where people didn't have to believe what a prophet or what one of these characters was saying. They got to see it. Manna from heaven. They got to see it. Conquering armies that are, way bigger than you. There's no reasonable reason that you should be able to beat them. You beat them. People got to see all that stuff. I feel like today you don't really
Okay.
see that a lot of the time. So it's like
No,
you're
we see
reliant on faith
this.
much more, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah. I got that
the
part. I got that
I
part.
think that's the hardest thing. I think that's like the most difficult thing. So they probably didn't think they were crazy as much as like today. It's like you can't really be like, see, I told you. It's like, just believe. Just believe. I think it's a lot harder. That's like, it's a part of my whole little theory
Well,
from last week, is that like apologetics seems to just get harder and harder and harder, because it seems that there's less and less and less to like be like, here, look, do you see?
it's just hard because everything's like drowned out and all the noise. I mean, like I think like for me, like I mentioned before, I grew up in a Pentecostal church. So whenever you have people up on the pulpit and like, I feel like God is saying this, or that and the other. And like for me, I would sit there and I would take a mental note, especially when it came to politics. And I'm like, these are pretty bold claims. So what are we all gonna do? Just kind of talking amongst like the audience, so to speak, when this doesn't happen. Well, that's not true. It's just not going to happen. But I'm like, okay, but what if it doesn't? And I just feel like no one's really held accountable.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
I agree.
so yeah, I don't know. I don't think we ever heard of anything back in the day where prophets said something was gonna happen and then it didn't, like almost like they missed the mark sometimes. I think that's the issue that I have with a lot of modern day stuff, is that sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it wrong. And like, am I supposed to be okay with that?
Who's they in the modern context?
Um, just the Christian community, in the Western,
Okay.
um, yeah,
So I guess consider that though too. So like in the Old Testament, you had basically Israel, period. The
right,
Israelites,
right,
period. And then in the New Testament, you had, you could argue there were kind of factions of Christianity, but not really. Like they were pretty much like Paul and his homies had basically the hand over Christianity. Now, what is Christianity? What is it? Is it Pentecostal? Is it evangelical? Is it Orthodox? Is it the Catholics? Is it the New Age Christians? Like they all believe different things. And even considering too that even during like the New Testament time span, it was still all effed up, and people were lying and saying the wrong things and doing all the wrong things, and there wasn't really a cohesive nature to the church. Well, now it's like it's a joke to pretend like Christianity is like a unit. It's a joke. It's the most disorganized, most
convoluted.
divided religion on the planet, and we act like we have our shit together. It's embarrassing. But I think to your point, like it's, how do you get truth from that? If you guys can't agree on like what baptism is, or you can't agree on like fundamental things, how do how do we know anything about like, oh, this will happen because God has made it clear to us? I just think you're crazy every time. Every time. When individuals like you or like Ghost tells me about a dream or something, I question it for sure because I didn't experience it, but like I value you guys' opinions. I value your intelligence. I trust that. I don't trust like the system of Christianity at all anymore.
Right. No, that's fair. That's true.
I think that makes it really hard.
Why do you think that is? Do you think we experience that more than other religions? I mean, I'm not in the environment, like of other religions, like deep in it. So I don't know if there's like a bunch of denominations of Hinduism, a bunch of denominations of, Zionism, and all these different things. So
Nah.
do you think that's, yeah,
Nah, no. So like there are, but not even remotely similar. Like a Muslim, I want to say Ghost probably knows better than me. He seems to know a good bit about Islam, but I want to say there's four. Last time, like that's the number that's popping up for me is four.
yeah,
Kind of
but we
like,
can't even compete. Like, we can't even, we don't even know how many there are with us.
no,
Like,
exactly, yeah.
it's kind of like,
That's why it's a joke. Like it's truly embarrassing to me.
but why? Why do you think that is?
I mean, I think pride is the majority of it. I like to think like my cop out that makes me feel better about it is that it has to do with the fact that we in essence have the truth. Like it's a part of, the truth is a part of Christianity because we understand God as he is more than anyone else. Therefore, who would be targeted the most? Well, probably like that group of people. What would be the
Okay,
best
so
way to
when
target them? Exactly what is happening.
right,
It,
that's probably one angle. And when you say that, I'm assuming you're referring to like what did I read earlier? What is it? Ephesians chapter 6. Is it 10? Where it talks about like
the
what we
armor of
wore.
God and stuff.
Well, yeah, but it talks about what we're really fighting against. So this is probably our problem is that we kind of fight against each other.
Ephesians 10 through 20. Is that what you're?
Hang on, let me see.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it. Just cut me off when you find it. But I think this.
Ephesians 6, like we'll just say 10 through 18.
Okay, that's perfect. So finally, be strong in the Lord and in His mighty power. Put on the full armor of God so that you can take your stand against the devil's schemes. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against rulers, against authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realm. Therefore, put on the full armor of God so that when the day of evil comes, you may be able to stand your ground. And after you have done everything to stand firm then, with the belt of truth buckled around your waist, yada yada, all the metaphors. In addition to all this, take up the shield of faith, which you can extinguish all the flames, arrows, yada yada, metaphor, and pray in the Spirit on all occasions with all kinds of prayer and requests, which I guess fits tonight. And pray with the Spirit on all occasions and all kinds of prayer and requests. With this in mind, be alert and always keep on praying for all the Lord's people. Pray also for me, that whenever I speak, words may be given to me, so that I will fearlessly make known the mysteries of the gospel, yada yada. But yeah, I mean, evil is the foundation of all of it, though, right? But that doesn't really change anything. Like, there's other religions that have very similar stuff. Islam is a similar thing. It's evil versus good. Hinduism and Buddhism are different, but all of kind of like
Isms.
Kind of, yeah. I don't like the Abrahamic religions are. I guess that's not even true. Judaism is really not about good and evil. Judaism, I don't even know what it is anymore, to be completely honest with you. I don't know what they believe. What's that?
Yeah.
War? Is that what you said?
Morphed.
Okay, I thought you said war. I was like, damn, that's brutal.
Yeah, no, I know.
Gotcha.
Well,
Gotcha. Nat's in here. Hold on. To wrap it all up, I think it's hard to make a definitive answer on why we pray if it works, because any answer kind of contradicts other Christian beliefs. If we don't think prayer works, then we don't have faith that God listens to and gives love or grace to His people. If we do believe that it works, we're saying that we have some say or pull, when in reality, I think God has the final say regardless of what we want. After last week, I thought long and hard on it. I can't answer in any way that I agree with or doesn't make me feel uncomfortable. I spent literally a whole week thinking about it, and I still haven't come up with anything solid. I think what she said, though, if we don't think prayer works, then we don't have faith that God listens to or gives love or grace to His people. If we do believe that it works, we're saying that we have some kind of say or pull, when in reality, I think God has the final say. That's where I kind of land. Go ahead.
Can she come on here, Nat? I don't know if you're able to come on.
So she said first, howdy, super late. Sorry, trying to catch up on the conversation. I'll definitely listen after because this was interesting. So I assume she's kind of dropping her piece and then probably bailing.
Okay.
All right, I want to say hi. Hi.
Oh, hey there.
It's Germ, by the way.
Oh, what's going on?
But I found this conversation very interesting, so I wanted to join in and put my 2 cents whenever I can at least think of something. I'm not knowledgeable with the Bible. That's why I'm listening and hanging out.
Philosophical, man. You don't need to know the Bible. Just thoughts.
I know.
What do you think?
I know. My brother's the one who brought me closer to God. So, and he's like, I don't read the Bible all the time, but he's like, I think it'd be good for you if you started to.
It probably would.
So I kind of have been by hanging out with you guys, and then like I need to sit and actually open my book that my brother's wife sent me.
Oh, good.
So,
if you have a hard time, if you've never really read the Bible, depending on what they got you, if you end up like trying to read it and you want to pull your hair out, reach out to me and I'll get you easier ways of learning all of it.
that's why I'm doing this with you,
Okay.
because
Okay.
I have tried in the past because I flip flop back and forth with Christian and Catholic because I was
Okay.
my
Yeah.
how I was raised, especially being Hispanic, going back and forth with it. It
Yep.
really messes you. And just like, all right, I'm bad. I don't want either one.
Yep. Yep.
But prayer has definitely been helping me since I've given myself to God last year, and it, dude, those strokes really scared the crap out of me.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't even know that I had them until they realized it. But I've been praying every night. Sometimes I forget, but I've been praying, and I feel like it does help.
Well, how
It
about
was
explain that, man? Because you don't need to know anything about the Bible to explain that. What is your experience with prayer been? Why do you think it's beneficial for you? What do you get out of it? Why do you do it?
I don't really have anyone that I hang out with here where I live because I try not to associate too much with where I live because it's kind of like a mixture of like druggies and people that just stay away from all that stuff. So I try to keep to myself. So I usually when I have like when I go to bed, I kind of pray, keep anyone that's bad away from the house. And and the only way I can remember the prayer is I believe it's the Catholic one where it ends with, uh, Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for our sins now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Is that correct? Is that the Catholic way, or I don't
Yeah.
remember?
That's a Hail
Yes.
Mary. The
Your
Hail
Hail
Mary.
Mary. Yeah.
That's just what my father, who made me go back and forth with this, that's how he taught us.
If you heard the
So-
Our Father too, you'd probably hear the first couple of words and be like, "Oh yeah, I know that one."
Our
There's those few
Father,
kind of
who art in heaven,
Art in
hallowed be thy
hallowed be
name.
thy name,
Yeah,
all that
that's
fun stuff.
that all I say that until I get to that one part, and my brother's like, "There's a Christian one." I was like, "I can't remember it. I always forget it." And so I just go, you know what? I'm just gonna do it how I was raised by my mom, my grandma, and my father. How they
Can-
taught us when we were little.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Do you ever kind of like maybe steer away from it a little bit and just make it a little bit more personal? Or
Yeah,
are
that's
you just
I do.
okay,
When I go to bed and it's just me, because me and my wife, we work the
right?
same job with the same client, so she stays there at night. I'm there with him during the day. That's why I said I'm driving home when you used to start at 7. Going, I'm driving home. I'm on my way home because that's the time I got off. Before I go to bed, I'll pray to him like, hey, Father above, Dad, whoever it is that I don't usually say whoever it is. I'll be like, Dad, keep an eye on me, keep an eye on my house, watch over my animals, my girl, make sure I, take care of me when I'm going to work so no one hits me and they're safe and I'm safe. Kind of like, my whatever. I guess it sounds, whenever I talk about that, it sounds like I'm being greedy. But
Totally, I totally get that.
but it's like that's how I was taught. I don't really have another way other than
Mhm.
from
Do you
when I
think
was
God
little.
is judging it though?
Like see, this is why I'm sitting here listening to you guys,
Okay.
because when I was younger, my dad, my biological father, he would always be very judgmental on like how we do things, and like, you got to do this. If you don't do this, this is gonna happen. I'm like, God. So I feel like he's like, if you guys always ask for God to do something for you, you need to do something in return. I'm like, I don't know what to do from this point on. I feel like I was shamed for praying, but at the same time, I was forced to pray, and it really confused the shit out of me
Yeah.
and how
That makes
I had to
sense.
do everything.
I grew up that way. I grew up in Catholic
Same.
school for most
Good
of
old Catholic guilt.
It's the good old
Well,
Catholic guilt.
I
Yeah.
know, right?
And see, the thing is I didn't go to Catholic school. He did though.
You don't have to.
Yeah.
He went
Yeah.
to Catholic church and all that, and
It's
then he
just
joined the
Catholic.
military.
It's Catholic in
So
Yeah.
general. Like Catholic kids become Catholic parents, and then they instill that. It's luckily I
And
feel like
culture,
it's going away
for
though.
sure.
It's going away.
Yeah.
If
There's
Catholics,
only a couple psychopaths like me who actually choose to stay Catholic. But
No, I mean
we're
the Catholic.
I'm just kidding. We're a rare breed.
The Catholics are becoming less like that, is what I meant.
I agree.
Catholicism
I
is
totally
actually
agree.
it's doing pretty well. When you compare like
Really?
Catholicism to like Baptists, yeah, they're doing pretty
Oh,
well.
sure.
People are moving away from it because I think my theory is that people are moving towards like Orthodox and Catholicism because they're dying for traditionalism because they're like sick
Yeah.
of what the church
The
is doing.
liturgical section.
They
Yeah.
don't want a fog machine. at church.
Yeah.
People are like sick
Totally
of this
right.
shit. They're sick of this
Well,
shit.
and it depends on what you're looking for, right? Like for somebody like Nick to become 30, to be 30 years old and 31 years old and become Catholic, it's like, why would you do that? But he's like, well, I've had all the woo woo and the crying and the fog machine my whole life, but I don't know anything. I don't know who Abraham is.
Yeah.
I don't know why Simon has Peter and Simon and there's two names. I don't know. Like,
That's
I
so
don't
sad.
need all the crying and the oceans playing in the background. Like, I want to learn. I want to know why. So it depends on what you're looking for.
Yeah, for sure. It
That's-
shouldn't,
that's-
but yeah.
Right.
Usually, and this is what made me. This is what kind of like pulled me into the conversation is when I had my stroke, and I'm 35, and I fucking had one. I didn't even know I had one. But my mom, she goes, whenever you pray to the Catholic priest. I'm like, why would I pray to a Catholic priest, Mom? I've always stopped her and gone, give me an answer why I have to pray to a Catholic priest. Why didn't I just pray straight to the boss? That's what I never understood, and she would get mad at me for saying that. I'm like,
Yeah,
I
she
don't
would.
get it.
Yeah. That's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, yeah. I have the same thoughts. I just don't say it out loud because I'm afraid.
Well, it depends on what you believe, right? Like it's the difference between whether or not you believe that a priest can be an intermediary. Same thing that a lot of people think that people pray to saints because they worship saints. A lot of people have an issue with Catholicism because they think we pray to saints, when in reality we think that they're up in heaven and they're really close to God.
Going
They're
together,
literally
yeah.
with Him, and we're like, hey, can you give this prayer a little bit extra boost because you're up there with them, and mine might take a little longer to get to Him, but other people say no, they're, that's polytheism, that's blasphemy. It's all how you look at it. There's no right or wrong.
I think that muddies it too, because like
Mhm.
I think on its own, I'd be interested to hear actually, Nat, like what your view on all that is, because it for me it's very very hard to like
I'm praying to saints and stuff.
to the anything with the intermediary because it's not biblical, so it's a
Right.
Christian cultural thing. It's zero root in the Bible, which is fine. There's other things
Yeah.
like that too, so there's nothing wrong with that. But what is the actual purpose? Like, doesn't that mean that you as a Christian lack the ability to get the prayer to God adequately? Otherwise, it would be irrelevant. It wouldn't.
So
There'd be no
I
need.
think that, and I'll start by saying I generally don't pray to saints. I'm a Catholic who doesn't pray the rosary.
Right.
I don't want to get, too anecdotal, but I mean, I've recently, before finding this group and before kind of finding my faith a little earlier this year, I remember I was praying the rosary and I felt really, really bad about it. Like I almost felt like it made I don't want to say it invited demons into me because that sounds psycho, but like I feel like it let something into me that I didn't want to be there, and I kind of had to cleanse it out from praying the rosary. To me, it felt really, really wrong, but that's just me personally. I don't pray to saints. I don't know that they have any extra pull, but again, I think they see it as more of a logistical thing, Joe. So these saints are actually like, God's a busy guy, right? He has lots of prayers to get to, lots of miracles to, produce. He's super busy. So if little old me is praying to him, he might not get to it, or I might have to pray to it a few extra times for him to finally get to my request. But if Mother Mary's up there right next to him, or if Saint Peter or Saint Robert or whoever is up there, and I kind of give it to him and it's like, hey, can you expedite this? It's really important. And you're the saint of Saint Robert is the saint of catechumens, and I'm praying for somebody who's becoming Catholic. So can you give him a little nudge? Or Saint Mary, it has more push when it comes to being a mother, and I have a prayer over my daughter. So can you help him get that? Because get your request put under the mother category, and he goes to yours quicker. Like that's kind of how I see it, as like God's the boss, we're just the employees. And kind of our managers, we're giving it to the manager and saying, hey, can you give this to the boss? Because I'm just a lowly employee. It might not get to him as quickly or as effectively as if you were to kind of help intermediate. That's how I see it. I don't believe that that's how it works, but I think that's what my understanding of it is.
It kind of sounds like Enoch with when you had the, I don't know what you want to call them, fallen angels or whatever. And of course they got in trouble when they came down to earth and did all their stuff. and then they go to Enoch like, hey, God's not going to listen to us because we did some bad stuff or whatever. Can you please ask him on behalf of us? And it's like you and him are like buddies type thing.
Yeah.
That's
And I
kind
think
of
it's
how,
almost a little selfish too. Like, hey, can you expedite this? Like, God's not listening to me, but can you help me? Like, kind of a lack of faith that God is truly listening to you, that you're important enough to
Yeah,
get your
so
prayers to him.
let me ask 2 follow-up questions, I guess, to everybody. And
Mhm.
Durham, feel free to get in if you want. But so one, with
Yes.
that, you're putting a limiting factor on God. Period.
Right. I agree.
So
Fair.
that's one thing you have to wrestle with. The other thing is like, even with, let's say that's all true and that's how it works. If I pray to Mary and you pray to Mary, who goes first?
Exactly. I guess we go before the people who don't pray to Mary, in their opinion, you know.
But just between,
A
so
lot of people are
all
seeing
4
the
of
rosary.
us pray at once to Mary,
Mhm.
to go to God because
Mhm.
God's doing his taxes or something. What Mary would pick who first? So then you have to kind of wrestle with that. Just like in my perspective, those are the 2
I
things
agree.
that make it hard. Is like that puts a limiting factor on
It's
God,
not-
which I think
right.
is
I agree with you.
really
Joe.
hard in and of itself. Like I think it's
But
really
I don't
tough
think
to take away
I
the.
don't think people see it as logically as you and I do. I
mean,
think people see
agreed.
it as I'm giving my purse to Mary, she's giving them to God. They might not think of the queue of the 4 of us that are maybe in front of or behind. I just don't think people think of it as logically. It's kind of more of a blind faith,
But
in my
I know.
opinion.
but shouldn't they?
I
It's
think they should, and that's why. But then you turn into somebody like me, who's a Catholic who doesn't pray to saints because I don't think it's necessary, and I find it a tiny little itty bitty bit demonic. Am I
Well,
allowed to say that? Am I going to
well,
get kicked out?
I don't think it's.
No, we're not Catholic. We're okay.
I mean, like, am I going to get kicked out of the Catholic Church? You know what I mean? Joking. But, I think it's a little demonic, truly. But that's just my conviction. That's just my anecdote. That it feels very dark and wrong to pray a rosary or to have a little pendant of Saint Anthony and ask him to find something that I lost. To me, that feels super, super off.
You see, I agree with you on that because that's
Yeah.
that I've always felt that way, and that's why that's why I get mad at myself that I don't learn the proper way. At least for me, in my eyes,
I
to
don't think
learn the
there is a
proper way.
proper.
Right.
That's the thing. It's whatever feels right to you. I have conversations with God. I mean, when I'm in church, I say, we say the Nicene Creed and we say the Our Father. And I like that because it feels like it's really beautiful to have a community of people coming together and lifting up the same requests and the same respect to God. I really love that part of church. But I'm just in my bed hanging out in the middle of the night and I can't sleep. I'm like, hey, God, what's up? Like, I'm really sad. Help me. Like, it's very informal. There's no right or wrong way to pray. That's the one thing that I feel very confident in. I haven't come to any conclusions over the past week, except for I think there's no right or wrong way to pray.
I have another question.
Except for if you're super disrespectful, like, hey, Sky Daddy, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's weird. Other than that.
Okay, so one I guess anecdote that I think is funny is I actually am like a fan of repetitious prayer, which I've gone through all of this. I've literally debated people about it because biblically there's some evidence that you maybe not that you shouldn't do it, but that it shouldn't be your actual form of prayer to God because it's not you, it's somebody else, it's something else. But I actually really like it. Like a lot of the prayer that I do for me is like I do the Glory Be, and I do the Our Father. Like I do a lot of the old Catholic stuff, and then I also have things that I have written that I have memorized and that I recite. I'm just that kind of guy. Like for me, it's like a discipline thing. I recite it, but I think about it while I'm doing it, and I mean the words while I'm doing it. Specifically, the ones that like I wrote myself, but it's repetitious. So I just think that's funny. Like the Rosary, I don't know if it's demonic or not, but like I kind of like the Rosary. I don't do the Rosary, but I like it. But maybe that's my issue personally with the repetition thing. Perhaps.
Can you post the rosary? Sorry, I was just a little curious.
What do you mean
What's
post
that?
it? Like
I just wanted you to kind of pull it up just so that I could see it and kind of, I don't know.
It's a long boy. It's a long one. It takes like maybe half hour to pray, maybe.
Yeah, so it's like how it works, I guess, for anybody who doesn't understand is you have.
Well, I've done it before, but only because I was raised in it, but it's been a minute.
So
I'd say there's maybe 10 prayers that you have to memorize, and then on each bead you need to say whatever of the 10 prayers there are, or 5, or however many there are.
You go around. But it's like
Your
if
penance.
if you were in Catholic school, like for us, it was a 2-week thing. and you just did the rosary for like 4 hours every day for 2 weeks, which as a kid, like you hate everybody. You hate everything about it because it's god awful. But like like obviously later it's different. But that's what the rosary is. So I like it because it's if you do it intentionally and you like are meaning and there's intention in the words, it kind of keeps certain types of people on track. I like mantras because I'm a weirdo. I was the type that like wrote mantras on my mirror. Like I get very determined on a thing. I like the discipline of it and self-discipline. I'm real big on that stuff. So I like it for that reason. But the question I had before like getting too lost on the rosary, but we can definitely come back to it, was it with the whole intercession thing. What are you guys' opinions on the idea that if it is I don't know if I would say it's demonic to pray to saints. I don't know that, or demonic to pray to Mary or whatever. I don't know, but something I think about is that if you were demonic, or you were the evil entities that are ruling the world, what would the implications be if you were able to figure out a way to defer hundreds of thousands of people from praying to God, and instead have them righteously pray to things they think are godly but are not?
Well, I think it kind of goes to the same thing, and this is silly, but people saying like, "Oh, I love when little kids celebrate Halloween because they don't realize they're worshiping Satan." Hee, like we got them. Like I think people think of it kind of the same way, like that we got them. We got them praying and giving power to, and giving their attention and power to something evil that's deceptive versus their real God. I think that's the intent for people who believe that.
You don't think it's more like an authority thing, though?
How do you mean?
Like, almost like, I mean, this could go in, I'm trying to think of an example. There's like several examples I could give, but like if you're all in the workplace and like maybe you have issues with HR, and we're looking at God like HR, and then you have this one supervisor that's, buddy with HR, and so then you go to that supervisor and you're like, hey, like put in a good word for me type thing.
I guess the way that I kind of see it is, imagine your boss walking in on that conversation and being like, I'm scared of that guy because he's a jerk and I don't trust him. So, but you're cool and I like you more. So help me. Like, I feel like God would be like, what the heck? Like, I love you. I'm not good enough. Like, and that's just, again, that's just totally me. But yeah, I think it's like, I don't know. I think, well, first of all, God knows everything we're saying, everything we're praying, everything we're thinking. So I think I don't know what God thinks, but I would assume that he would prefer for us to pray to him directly and to come to him and to trust him. So
that's fair. But I guess part of me feels like what's so bad about also going to the supervisor? If that makes okay, like I'm going to give you an example.
Yeah.
Everyone in my family is like a really, loose Catholic, so to speak. I'm probably the only, I don't even like saying I'm Christian because I'm really bad at it. But, for example, like I've mentioned on here before, like I'm super sick. I have surgeries all the time. And one of the family members got kind of fed up and they gave me a Saint Christopher. And they're like, hey, you need to carry this with you like all the time, because you're really sick.
It'll protect you.
Better. Yeah. And like in my mind, I kind of translate it as, hey, Vanessa, like your Christianity isn't good enough.
Yeah.
It's
you're not praying hard enough.
You're
not trying hard enough. So you need help. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's try our way. This is our quote unquote Hail Mary pass, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, just have it with you. And of course, I did the typical Hispanic thing, and it's right there hanging in like my rear view mirror. But
you have La Virgen Maria, you have your candle, all that fun stuff.
I actually don't.
I don't either.
But
I get it.
Yeah, but I'm like, I don't know.
So okay, then I'm not the only one that has to deal with the Mexican mom and grandma.
Are you kidding me? Yeah. Do you see my last name, bro? Like,
no, I yeah.
Well, and so I guess I'll actually throw it back and I'm kind of curious your opinion on this. So, do you guys believe with the buddy thing? I mean, I think praying to Jesus instead of God is something that I find myself falling into, and I struggle about whether or not that's right or wrong. I feel a lot of guilt about it. I've Googled it, can't find any answers, but I'm like, afraid of God, but Jesus is like my friend. So I like
That's
never
so
pray to
weird.
God, but I almost
Yeah.
always pray to Jesus, and I almost feel a lot of guilt about it because that's the same person. But
Yeah.
I'm like, God, you're scary and you're gonna be mean and you're gonna judge me. But Jesus, he's my buddy, so he's not gonna hurt me. He's gonna listen and love me. Like, is that not kind of the
God,
same thing?
yeah. I know for me, when I pray, I honestly pray in the name of the Father, the Son, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. That's how I
Absolutely.
kind
Yeah.
of wrap it up. I want to make sure I get all of them in there.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
but I think for me is, I guess I look at all of it as like a parent, right? And for
Mhm.
me, I'm a single mom. So I hate that I'm both mom and dad. Like I so hate it so much. But I guess I kind of look at God a little bit like that, right? So you got to wear your hats with whatever it is that's necessary per
That's
situation.
true. You can't always be
And
their friend. You can't always be their parent. You have to. I totally get what you're saying.
yeah, and it sucks. It really sucks.
Yeah, because there are parents who are like, I'm not your friend, blah, blah, blah. I think that's really sad. Your kids should be your friend, but also not
Do you
just
have
your friend.
teenagers though?
There's
You don't
times
have
to be
teenagers.
their parent. What's that?
You don't have teenagers, huh?
No, I know. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I
it's a
only have
little-
a 1-year-old, but
it's a
still, I
whole
mean, I don't want my parent to just see me as an authority, or my child to only see me as authority figure. I want them to trust me, and strict parents make sneaky kids. So I want them to think that they can trust me and can see me as a confidant, but
yeah.
also somebody who is going to be who's going to have some sort of authority. And I think that's the kind of the same thing with God, where you need to trust him and have him be your friend, but you also need to respect and fear him.
Right. And I think that's kind of what it boils down to. And I've had
Yeah.
to tell my kids, like, okay, I'm grateful, I guess, that you're comfortable being funny and joking with me in this way, which is something I would never, ever, ever think to do in front of my mom.
Oh,
But like,
yeah.
can you tone it down when guests are
We're
here?
not buddies. Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, like stuff like that. Like, there's a time and a place for respect, like, and I guess maybe I kind of look at the triune being like that, like, I mean, obviously, let's just say hypothetically you're receiving some award or you're going to give some speech. You're not going to be disrespectful in that
Right.
setting, right? There's a time and
Right.
a place for it. But maybe behind the scenes, closed doors and whatnot, it's like, oh my God, my life is falling apart.
Well, then
And
I guess to bring it back to prayer, like Joe said, does that maybe bring it back between like saying the repetitive prayers that are more biblical and structured, and you're putting in kind of that time and that effort to be respectful and say the Lord's Prayer and say the Our Father the way that it was written in the Bible, the way we were told to say it, versus also feeling comfortable to have conversations with God? Like, is that kind of how we can justify doing both, where we respect and fear him, but we also feel like we can have a personal relationship with
I
him?
think biblically you have to do both. You have to do both.
Yes,
Because
I agree.
we're given directive about the prayer like the Our Father, but we're also given pretty clear direction about basically not praying like a zombie. Because
Right.
there's a difference. And I think you could just do repetitious prayer and also do that biblically as well. If you're intentional about it. Every word you're uttering, you're thinking about. It's all very intentional. But I think probably the best way for most people would be to do both. But let me ask a question before we get too far away from it. For everybody is willing to answer it, and try to keep the answers quick. So because I got to go pretty soon. But I think I want to get through some more of this because it's really interesting. Jesus and God, are they the same? And I'm just going to call them a person. We all know that it's not. Are they the same
And
person or not? Yes. Yes or no?
Yes, in my opinion.
yes.
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. Honk, do you want in on that, or are you doing something else? I'll wait like 2 seconds. Okay. So if Jesus and God are the same being or entity or whatever you want to call them, aren't you guys being pretty logical? With
Yeah,
the
absolutely.
Okay, so why the interesting thing about it is that like the greater context of the beings themselves is like in the beginning there was just God, and then there was a reason that Jesus had to come, who is also just God. So then they were separated, and then after Jesus died, he went back to what basically just being just God again. So it's like
Yeah.
Jesus doesn't really exist anymore. There's no.
That's a
That's
good
what
point.
I've never understood this whole thing of like we pray, and I'm guilty of it, but I've never understood this thing of like pray to Jesus. Like, who is Jesus now? Jesus was it was a historical character that ceases to exist. Jesus was
I
God.
think maybe
Jesus is
it's
God
easier
again.
to potentially conceptualize maybe a general face or a general somebody who did things that we have stories of. We feel like we can have a personal connection because, like we said about death, you can't conceive of something that you've never experienced. We can't conceive of God being just this being out in the ether because we've never experienced that. But we can imagine Jesus being a person who washed feet and who ate bread and who drank wine. So I feel like he helps us to have more of a personal connection than just like some random being up in in the clouds.
I think you're right.
Now,
So I think that's why I pray to him. Not only that he's like the cool, nice guy, but it's easier to, if I'm putting kind of a face, whether it's like the guy from The Chosen or whether it's like the picture on my mom's like bedroom wall, like it's easier to put a face to it and feel like I'm speaking to someone than just like dark space, like a blank wall.
But is it right? Like that's the whole thing, and that's why everybody freaking hates me. Is that like I get it, and again, I'm guilty of it. But does that make it right? I still think it's wrong. I think like it's one of these things in Christianity where we've just accepted it, like it's okay and like it makes sense. But no, it doesn't.
Wait, what part's wrong? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
The idea that like Jesus, why would you pray to Jesus now? He doesn't exist. Jesus was just God. Jesus came down, and Jesus no longer exists. He's God again.
I have a problem with that because I know you have issues with Revelation. Totally get that, yada yada. But if Jesus were to, do you honestly think that he kind of disappears and then he reappears again in Revelation, or do you just think that
Oof.
time is
Revelation?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Because I mean, it's very clear, right? That he's. I just think. I don't know. They each have their role and part, and maybe he's in the low key in the cut. You know what I'm trying to say? Like giving feedback or whatnot.
I mean, maybe.
see,
Go ahead.
now I apologize for my delay. I was raised a Methodist, so maybe I'm wrong on this interpretation, but I always heard that we prayed in Jesus's name because he's the one who sacrificed himself, even though he is God. But you just have to mention that. Didn't it say in Matthew that he sits at the right hand of the Father?
Yeah.
Several times. Yeah.
So he's up there. He exists,
Yeah,
but up there in heaven.
In the cut.
He's there for the second coming. Yeah.
He's just waiting. But
Praying
he exists. I
to
guess maybe.
Jesus.
Like, yeah, does his soul exist? Just like after we die, do we exist or not? Do we go to heaven? Like, did Jesus's soul go to heaven? Is he up there as him? Or did it kind of get absorbed into God? That's a good question as well.
Okay, so
Well, I think he always has been. It's the same thing as like I forget the exact verse. I apologize. But when you die and you go to heaven, I remember there being a verse saying that you're stripped of all earthly desires. So we, as we are currently, wouldn't be up there because, like, currently all we are is we have to fight with both the flesh and try to live by the law of the spirit. So I can't quite imagine what heaven would be like because all of my perception is through earth and like what we see as reality right now.
Or what our body and our physiology allows us to perceive, which won't exist.
Yeah.
Right.
But so here's the thing though, because I'm glad he said it. There's more than just what's in Matthew about Jesus being separate from God in heaven. So here's another one. Then they're not one. Period.
Right. And that's confusing. I agree.
That's
Don't
confusing.
do that.
It's
Don't do that to my brain.
the theological implications, no matter which way you turn, which is my point, is you're screwed either way.
And the Holy Spirit. So you think that didn't appear until what, Pentecost? Or
that one's even more confusing.
It's even harder. It's even harder.
Like who's out here praying to the Holy Spirit? You know, like that's even more abstract.
I said Father, Son, Holy Spirit.
A lot of people do. And like the charismatic Christian, honestly, I'm probably more like intentionally connected to that part of the unit than anything else. Like one of you said Jesus, one of you said God. I feel more direct connection and intention towards the Holy Spirit because I have a harder time with the greater entity. But I don't believe they're one. Like, that's the whole thing. This is where I divert from Christianity. I don't believe they're one. Why? Because the Bible doesn't at all give that picture. It gives a very different picture. I get it if it's more of like, what's that?
It's an interesting concept that, again, we can't perceive of because we can't be multiple people.
And that's what I think the point is that it lies completely outside of anything we could comprehend. But you have people who do, years and years of trying to rationalize it. And so it's like you're rationalizing something that is outside of your rational ability. No matter what, you're just making no sense. And I think you can find things to back up your belief about it no matter what, because data is infinite now. So you can justify anything in any way you want at this point, especially within something like religion, where there's really very little set in stone. And there's a lot of philosophical content to it and things like that. But this is what's interesting to me is like everybody kind of gave a different answer. No matter what, though, at the end of the day, it all leads everybody back to the same thing, which is why why this is
that's all
ever an
God really
argument.
wants, right?
I think that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. So I don't think it really matters whether they're separate or the same, because the Bible, where it is consistent, is that regardless of whether they are separate or the same, the principles and the tenets remain the same. And they are concrete. They are steadfast. That's it.
Well,
Now I don't.
yeah.
Oh, I don't know the exact quote, nor do I know your feelings on Cliff Nechtel. I know I butchered the last name. Wasn't it when Jesus was speaking to the Pharisees? He said, close enough to it, just as Abraham was before I am.
Yeah.
And they were going to stone him for that.
A couple times. The I am thing is also a very interesting topic. It's a longer one, but it's good.
The only way that I can,
abstract.
Yeah,
concept.
The only way that I can describe it, and I got it from a kitschy fantasy novel, is how to describe a being that exists outside of time is essentially like a thread in water, where water is time and it's linear because it's flowing this one way, but the thread's going through all of it, and we're all little bits of whatever flowing that one direction. So
well,
I can't.
I'd like to get your thoughts too on the concept of like, can we be multiple entities of ourselves but still be us? So like, is my soul separate from my body, separate from people's memory or thought or perception of me? Like, are those three different versions of me, but they're all still me?
See,
can I be three parts of myself?
The way that I describe it after I had read Romans was we have three separate things, though technically we're one thing. Is we are a soul, we have a body, and we have the Holy Spirit.
I think of it almost more as like a concept of yourself can be a separate entity. Whether or not your soul goes wherever it goes, or the memory of you, or when someone thinks of you, or however you want to put it, I think that's a third separate part of yourself, is just someone thinking of you popping in someone's head. I think that's a third part of you.
Wouldn't you have dozens and dozens of those then?
I guess more just as a concept.
Yeah, the idea of something is always different than what it actually is.
Right. That's the idea of you, I guess. Regardless of if those vary, it's just one general concept of an idea outside of your body and outside of the soul that lives inside that body. Maybe. I don't know.
Sure. No, that's interesting. Yeah.
That's kind of how I feel like we can at least be two separate things that we can conceive of that. We have a soul, but also we have our body.
Yeah.
See, I'm pretty big on trichotomy. So like, in Genesis, when God says, let us make man in our image, I believe, that was the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then we are the soul, spirit, and the body because we were created in his image. So I believe we are three parts because he is three parts. Again, I could be wrong. I could change.
I always like that description. I found that very interesting when I realized it, of us having technically three parts and God being triune.
Right.
I'm just coming to it now, and it's fascinating. I just had a light bulb moment, and it's very interesting.
Fun. It's interconnected, and that's one of the things that is actually relatively unique about Christianity. Going kind of back to Why in a world of religions where some are similar and some are very different, but everybody believes that they have the truth and some are willing to die for it, not just Christians, other religions are willing to
Mhm.
die for it too. In
I'm not gonna
in that sense, I think you could get a lot of people who aren't Christian to agree to that if you question them about it with no context and you just presented that theory and you said, you know, I believe you could talk a lot of people into saying, yeah, I get what you're saying. We kind of do have three parts to us. Christianity is unique in that we have that triune nature. That is unique about Christianity. That's one thing that does stand out.
Now, it was mentioned before. I hope the moment hasn't passed too much, but repetitive prayers. How do I say it? Is I normally only pray when I say grace, but it's always like somewhat of a different permutation of what I have going on currently. It's never really the same thing. I wouldn't have the same prayer a year ago as I would now or a year later. But I've always struggled with having it being completely different every single time, and I don't really try to have it be that way.
You mean like it being right or wrong?
Yeah, vain repetitive prayer. I don't know what that was in.
Matthew 6.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
want to get that good one day.
I'm not that good. There's very few that I know where they're at. No, so that we kind of, yeah, we brushed on it, but I think biblically there's a good argument that you are kind of told to say repetitive prayer. You're given the Our Father. It's an example. You're also told, like you said, not to use vain repetition. And I think
Right.
that's the key,
Mhm.
and that's what people brush over. It doesn't say not to do repetitious prayer. It doesn't say that. It says not to do vain repetition
Yes,
in your prayer life.
like
That's the difference.
the few times I've experienced vain repetitive prayer, and this isn't supposed to be. Excuse me, I got to break up a fight, and it isn't a dig at the Catholics per se, but I was at my grandmother's funeral, and they had like the one thing like for the sake of the sorrowful passion, and then you cross yourself, you say another thing, and we did that for like an hour and a half. And my grandmother-in-law would do the same thing every Sunday morning of just the exact same prayer over and over and over and over. Oh, I think that's vain repetitive prayer.
Yeah.
Unless someone really,
When you're
really
doing it and
means it.
dreading
But
it.
it's
Mhm.
so difficult for like 30 minutes straight saying the exact same thing is like, my food goes cold. I take about 15 minutes because I got a lot going on right now.
Right,
But it's always like stuff that still needs work. Is like
Well,
help out this.
It's interesting that you say that because I don't know if anybody else is the same, but I almost find myself putting in repetitive prayer when I can't find myself to put in the effort to like pray from my heart and from my soul. Like when I don't have the words, I can't. I only say the things that can just come to my mind because I want to pray. I want to speak to him, but I just can't come up with the words. So kind of the opposite, where I feel like I pray when I just can't get myself to do it on my own, I guess.
That's
See,
interesting.
something that helped me a lot is, and I don't know how often you'll have time for it, but I'm a night shifter. I woke up, 20 minutes ago, even though my alarm went off. Sorry. I've been trying so hard to wake up on time. But when I do rounds on this empty construction site with nobody around and I'm driving in my little truck, is I won't have any kind of like, oh, our Father. It's just, I'll just talk to him about like how the day went, what's going on, what I need help with. But whenever I'm about to eat, I always say things like, because I could always be a better, husband, father, and man. So I always mention that.
Yeah.
My brother's sick. My mom's going nuts, stuff like that. And that's something that always needs help until it gets better. So I never normally ask like, hey, can you just come down, smack him in the back of the head, make him better. It's always like, give them the guidance and the strength that they need. And heck, if I need to help, you let me know when, and I'll jump in.
Yeah, I like that. I'd say outside of the repetitious prayer that I intentionally do because I like it, because again, it's like a discipline thing for me. Outside of that, it's very, very open. It's like you. Like a lot of time, I'll do it in the car. I'll just kind of talk. Like this is what's going on. It's basically in all reality, it's me thinking out loud and just trying to. It's not that I don't try to talk to God personally. That's not something I do. I don't think that's how it works, and that's maybe I'm weird. I try to like feel the presence of God, and that's it. I don't like imagine that what I'm saying actually goes to God, like as if he doesn't know. It goes against it breaks every possible Christian theology to like think he has to be told by you anything. So then you get the, well, it's a personal connection. So yeah, but he already knows, so it's redundant.
Oh yeah.
So for me,
Right.
it's more just like, look, I need to talk about these things to just like to get them out of my head and to try to process them. But in doing so, I'm trying to have the presence of God. Like I'm trying to feel that. I'm trying to connect. The words are irrelevant to me. It's like the connection. It's the moment. It's the feeling.
And I think that's
also
how I agree with the repetitious prayer. I think that's how it kind of comes into being, that you're just kind of calling that presence into your space.
Yeah, and it's respect. It's respect.
I think that also when we pray, it's kind of like the consummation of our own triune being kind of coming into place and really petitioning, right? Because it's like you're thinking these things, you're feeling these things, and then finally you blurt them out physically, right? So
yeah, I mean, Rodriguez, last week, you know, I made the bold statement that, and I kind of believe this. Again, I spent a week thinking about it. I still don't know what I believe. The bold statement that I don't really think when we ask for things that they're more or less likely to happen. I think it should be more of like a connection and a conversation with God. But I'll be damned if I'm on an airplane and I feel, you know, turbulence. I'm not praying to God like, please don't let this plane fall out of the ground. Like I have a daughter, I can't die right now. Like I'd be damned if I don't ask him for things because I'm scared or because I'm desperate or because I'm sad or because I'm, you know, whatever. I mean, I think it is just kind of a culmination of our personal inner monologue kind of making its way out to somebody that we can't share it with at the moment.
I think that oh sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you're fine.
You've been holding on for a minute, so I think
oh sorry.
Well, either way. Whomever.
3.
Okay, I suppose that's me.
Okay.
Go for it.
I was going to ask, what does one pray for? Because it's not like you can pray for a Ferrari or what have you. My main thing is I mainly, pray for strength and guidance and improvement. But when it comes to worries and stuff like that, what's the difference between, handing off the stuff you can't fix to God and what's the just leaning on a shovel and praying a hole gets dug? Because I don't know where that line is too well yet.
Does there need to be a line?
I don't think there is a line.
Right.
I think some people could think what you're asking for is petty and silly, and some people could think that it's unimaginable of anything that they could ever experience, and that they, of course, would pray for that because it's so hard or so difficult. I think there's no line. Depends on your background.
Yeah, because
we're all part of the body of Christ, so I think we each have our own role in all of that and what to pray.
Because I always pray for guidance and strength, but to tell you the truth, I flipped my car last January. She still runs though, but she needs a lot of work done. But I ain't never prayed to get that thing fixed because I know I can manage.
But also I guess if you prayed for it to get fixed, would that happen? I guess is kind of the question. If you pray for somebody like my mom was sick literally from the time I was 1 until the day she died, she was sick. If I prayed all the time, she never got better.
Right.
She never got better.
Right.
She never got any better. She got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. So just is it possible for that to actually do anything at all in any scenario? That's kind of like the $1 million question. Is prayer effective, or is prayer more of like a self? Like that's why I've abandoned all of that. And like I said, what Honk was just talking about too is like for guidance, for strength, I have very similar. A lot of my prayers surround about like being a good man and being a good father and being a good spouse to Kat and like being able to provide more than I currently am so that we can be set up and have blah 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 blah. But it's all like God doesn't do any of that for me at all. So I'm not praying for him to like help me. I'm praying for him to help me be aware of things. I'm not praying for him to intervene in my life. I'm praying for him to again, it's like the connection that takes me to do other things. He's not doing anything for me, but I do believe he impacts me in such a way that then I am more competent and capable of doing things for myself.
That's fair. I also agree, Joe, that I find myself not intentionally until you mentioned it, but kind of praying to just do whatever, to have the wisdom to do what he wants me to do, because I don't always know what that is. It's kind of the same concept.
Yeah.
Right.
Just give me guidance.
But then
good person.
the question is like, when you
But then does he
receive
really
it,
tell us?
exactly.
Does he come down and say, hey, do this, that, the other? Or do we just gotta, I mean, I guess
I
maybe we're all, you know, familiar with that feeling of, hey, don't do that, or hey, do that. And you just kind of, maybe it's your gut feeling, your intuition or something. Maybe that's what I think is God talking. I think when you just get a feeling or an intuition, or you're
Sometimes.
afraid to do something, or you feel pushed to do something, or to
I
go
think for
this way to
me,
work instead of that way, that's kind of how I think he answers. But
no,
I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
get that. I just kind of feel like for me, I can't handle any more heartache and disappointment. I've had a few lifetimes of tragedy, and to me, like even when I pray, I'm like, God, can you just like not have me pray for things that I shouldn't?
Yeah.
That's fair.
Like,
Yeah.
help
I
me
think
to
it's
let go of certain things that I should like, because I just can't handle it anymore. I'm already questioning, and who knows? Maybe I'm not allowed to pray it. Maybe I am. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't. But it's just, and which is what I was going to say earlier. I think what God honestly wants more than anything is the intimacy, the
Mhm.
raw, unfiltered. Give him the I don't know.
Yeah.
Give him the I'm not sure. Give him the yes I do know, or all of it. You know, like I think that's in my experience, because I've had weird experiences in that department in praying to him. And all I can say is that I gave him my raw and my ugly and unknown, and it did something.
Mhm.
I'll
I
give.
will say,
Go ahead.
ooh,
Go ahead.
I will say that's probably one of the biggest things with prayer that a lot of non-Christians get turned off with is like, oh, so you're saying I can't treat him like an ATM? Pfft, that's stupid. But it's sort of like if we're all dogs and praying for chocolate, does it make him a you know, a good God to give us chocolate and we all die or not?
Yeah.
I think
It
it's the
makes
whole
us seem
question of maybe not
faithless.
what you want, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Makes
give
us
me
seem like
what
we
I
have no
need,
faith that he
God,
can
because
do what we
I
ask
don't
him
know
to
that obviously.
do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
So
because I was always told he wasn't an ATM.
yeah, no, I mean,
Go ahead.
I think that's a crazy thought. Anybody who like comes into
No,
any religion, I think that's crazy to think God's like an ATM, like it's a freaking genie in a bottle. Uh, let me give an example, and then we'll do like 10 more minutes because I got to start wrapping up. But for a good example, I think from like my perspective or context is in a relationship context, like with
Yeah.
Kat. I'm not the most emotional man in the world. I'm pretty like logical. I'm pretty analytical. It's how I am. I think I'm kind of far on the spectrum of that too, from what I've learned throughout my life. So when there's an emotional moment or an emotional scenario or something where I need to be cognizant and understanding and empathetic about her emotions, regardless of the situation, but that's what it needs to be, that's when I'll find prayer useful because I know I have the capacity already inside me to be empathetic or sympathetic or to be cognizant of her emotions or how she's feeling or just emotions in general. Like being on that level, I'm already competent of that. It's not, I already have it. I don't need God to give it to me. But when I'll pray, like in the moment or during a break of talking or whatever the case is, when I pray, I feel like I have more access to it. Like I'm more cognizant of it and I'm able to slip into that. I feel like I kind of get softened. And then what I'm already capable of, I'm able to draw on more in the moment. And to me, that is the intimacy. Like that is the connection. I'm drawing on a connection. Like I need you. I don't think he's going to do anything for me at all other than like allow me more of the access to the capability and competency that I already have. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and more of what he wants. Allow you to do more of what he would want you to do.
Yeah, which is just morality. It's just the right thing.
Right.
but how does that work with children, right? Because I think for me, what honestly changed a lot of my views is just watching my children pray and seeing all of that kind of, play out. Like, I remember a couple years ago, there was a lady who was going to be homeless. She was my coworker, and it was like I let her live with me and her two kids. And some weird expense happened that I had to pay off, and like I felt bad because like my kids were not going to have a Christmas tree, and they were little. And I kind of was like, oh shoot. And I felt bad, and I remember just kind of letting them know, like, hey, sorry, I didn't expect this to happen. So this year's not going to be like, what you had hoped. And my daughter prayed for God to give her like a Christmas tree and like a regular Christmas. And I'm the asshole mom. So I kind of stopped her mid prayer, like, hey, maybe you should just thank him for what we have. Maybe, like, I don't think you heard me, type thing. And I do remember that someone showed up with a Christmas tree on our door a couple days later. And then I guess someone called into like our local Christian radio station, and people ended up giving us like gift cards to like us, our family, and then also the family that I took in for that Christmas. So I think he hears it all.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
of course, we need to give kids grace. It'll take them a little while to realize, that you can't pray for
I also
you can't pray for a Christmas tree. Like, they don't
But
get
I mean,
it.
I interrupted her, and I feel like honestly, I'm the one that felt convicted. Like, like I should have shut the fuck up.
So it does say that what pray with all of your heart. I can guarantee you that kid prayed with all of her heart to get that
For
tree.
sure.
And it wasn't so much the materialistic need of wanting just a tree. I think it was more just that like I bet everyone remembers when they were a kid and Christmas is such a special event. It was like she prayed for that feeling more than the tree, but the tree was just part of it.
Right.
Would it have happened had she not prayed? That's the question, right? Like
I don't think so, only because I forget how word got around, and then someone called the local radio station to say something, and then I guess they contacted me and say, hey, people were so compelled, and felt led to give or whatever because of what happened. And so to some degree,
one thing is that a lot of people say like prayer doesn't work at all for a lot of things because like, oh, it could just be a coincidence, this or that. But I remember there was one time I was getting separated from the Coast Guard. We were getting ready to move, super stressful because we had a newborn. But my father-in-law, I had to pick him up in Philly to drive our U-Haul all the way to New Mexico when we were moving at the time. And I was terrified. I hate Philly. I hate city driving. It sucked. But I was driving to go get him at like midnight. And I remember I had this Bluetooth plug-in for my car so I could listen to music. And I was just talking to God. I was just praying. And I was like, this is absolutely selfish, completely, unnecessary. And I know that, I would have better faith if I didn't need this. But if you got me covered for this drive, can you just let me know somehow? Like, I'm oblivious. I don't be subtle. And I had driven this route countless times before. I never had any kind of radio station like overpower the signal on that plug-in. And I got like some old-timey gospel station for like 30 seconds and I cried like a baby because that had never happened before. And could a new radio station have been put in? Absolutely. But what are the chances that it turned on at that exact moment for that amount of time? And old Christian radio, first and foremost.
Yeah.
I was like, that I think was an absolute sign that he was just like, you know what? I know you're being kind of a wuss about this, but I'll give you this one.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their stories, man.
We do.
Which totally. Oh no, my guardian angel's a ginger who drives a red Prius. So want to hear that story?
For sure.
So weird. Mine too.
Yeah. No. I laid my motorcycle down when I was a kid. I was like 16 or 17. I just got my M endorsement. And I laid it down. I screwed up my knee real bad. I couldn't lift the thing up. Guy in a flannel shirt, ginger, red Prius, shows up to my tiny town where we know everybody. Never met him before in my life. He lifts it up. He makes sure I'm okay. And I shake his hand. I'm like, thanks. What's your name? And he says it. And I honestly can say I heard it. I could not comprehend it. I don't know what his name is. I guess I don't know Angelic or whatever, but I've never seen him again. And honestly, if those are the circumstances I'll meet him under, hope it doesn't happen again. I hope I do well enough I don't need to see him.
Fair point. Interesting. That's the thing, man. It's like you hear a lot of stuff like that, and it's hard to just dismiss it. We have
Right.
to wrap up. I gotta jump off, guys. But the chat is asking that Honk reads. Honk, do you have YouTube up too or no?
No, I don't. Why?
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna copy this verse into the let's go the Bible channel on Discord. You can stay in the voice chat and still click into that channel. They're asking that you read this verse out of the Bible because you have such a beautiful radio voice.
Aw.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Thank you. I've heard that before.
Mikkel and Scott are asking for it. So it's in Bible. I dropped it in
questions?
there. What's that?
Okay, should I wait until you scoot, or should I read it now?
No, you're good, because I got to hop off. So we are done for the night.
Alrighty. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything according to his will, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have what we asked of him. If you see any brother or sister commit a sin that does not lead to death, you should pray and God will give them life. I refer to those whose sin does not lead to death. There's a sin that leads to death. I am not saying that you should pray about that. All wrongdoing is sin, and there is sin that does not lead to death. 1 John 5:14 through 17.
Scott,
or was that the other one?
No, you have it. You have it.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's a different translation, so it might look a little different when Discord populated the.
I'm always into KJV, but that's just me.
Hey, everybody's
People are
got
too
their
uptight about
preference.
it. You're fine.
What's that?
Oh yeah, that's just
people are too uptight about it. You're fine.
It's a point.
See, I just like KJV. That's something I think I read NIV, a study version, but for KJV, you know exactly what I'm going to read every time at church. If I have to read a verse in front of people, it's going to be KJV, because the language is just so powerful in my mind.
Yeah, then you have it. It doesn't. Yeah, we all have a concordance. We all have access to one, so I don't want to hear anyone complain about it. So.
Yeah.
I just want to say really quick, Graves. I know we talked about prayer briefly and kind of like how to pray. I would honestly encourage you to read Psalms, because David breaks a lot of rules that kind of Catholicism has overall when it comes to prayer, and also in terms of selfishness.
Is going to do a lot to
strike my enemies and all kinds of stuff. So I don't know if you're still there and out and about, but
I'm here.
I would also say that. Okay.
If you can send me a link or something, because I'll forget.
For Psalms? Okay. Are you on Discord? I don't know what your name is on Discord.
Germ Graves.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll find you.
Throw him some links in the Bible or a DM or something. Okay. Well, I have to run. This was great. It started slow, but then got real heavy. It was real good stuff. So what's today? Thursday. Saturday will be normal. Sunday will be normal. I think we're pretty much back to normal. So tonight I'll post a poll in the announcements, and I'm gonna, from now on, basically I'm gonna structure them the same way I did the last time. So there will always be an option for it to just be kind of open-ended, where it's just an open discussion. So I'll have like some stuff ready to fill time, like I did in the beginning when nobody was really on the voice channel, nobody was talking. I'll fill time, and then if anybody comes in with a topic or something they want to talk about or whatever at all, as long as Thursdays stay Christian focused and like spirituality focused, I'm cool. And then Saturdays are very much secular news, political garbage. So if you're not interested in it, don't come. And then Sundays, obviously Bible study. So that'll be that. But I gotta run. I love you guys. Tonight was wonderful.
Y'all.
And I'll have the post up later. See you guys later. YouTube, have a lovely evening. Mikkel. Oh, and look at all of Scott's drops in the YouTube chat before you guys bail, because he dropped a lot of really good stuff. Same with Mikkel. He threw some quotes out that were very, very good. So before you bail for good, take a look at some of their stuff in the chat if you have not already. Quality content.